Hi everyone, I'm Maddie with the Obesity Action Coalition, and on this episode of Fresh Perspectives, we'll hear from Dr. Rachel Goldman on toxic positivity. Dr. Goldman is a clinical psychologist, speaker, and consultant who takes a holistic approach to health. She is the clinical assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at NYU Grossman School of Medicine and has a private practice in New York City where she utilizes cognitive behavioral therapy to assist in behavioral changes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Goldman. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you today, and I'm doing well. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for asking, and we'll just go ahead and dive right in. So can you tell us a little bit about what toxic positivity is?
Yeah, so it's this term that has been around for, I would say, has become more popular in the past few years. It's one of those hot terms, but what it really refers to is this idea that no matter how difficult a situation is, or no matter what somebody is going through, that we should be maintaining a positive outlook or a positive mindset. So if we think of those, from years ago, like stay positive or positive vibes only, that's what toxic positivity is.
Okay, gotcha. Can you give us some examples of that?
Sure. So some common examples would be when something bad happens to somebody or unexpected, like maybe somebody losing a job or a breakup, people saying, just stay positive, or look on the bright side, or at least, right, that word at least, like at least you still have XYZ. We can even think of it in terms of when, maybe somebody loses an individual in their life, there's a loss, and somebody saying, well, everything happens for a reason. So it's, really discounting the other emotions that people may be experiencing, and just this idea of look on the bright side, think of all the positive things, but that can actually be quite harmful and problematic.
Right, absolutely. I can definitely relate to people saying stuff like that to me, and it is very frustrating.
Yes, it's so frustrating. And I think, something to keep in mind is, the reason it's frustrating is because we're feeling different emotions. And now somebody's telling you shouldn't be feeling that, right? Like somebody's telling you how you should be feeling. Right. And we can't just flip a switch, right? We all have emotions and they're all valid. So it's really discounting those emotions, and it's ignoring the fact that we're humans, we are emotional beings, and it's ignoring the fact that we have a wide variety of emotions, and it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can we avoid toxically positive behaviors in ourselves?
So I think the first step is to recognize that we all have a wide variety of emotions, right? That we have negative emotions, and that's okay, right? Like anger exists for a reason, sadness exists for a reason, and we don't have to always be positive. So the first thing is to just recognize that. And then I also think oftentimes it's difficult to label our emotions, but if we're able to identify and label the emotion, like this is anger, this is frustration, this is sadness, that can be really helpful. And then also reminding ourselves that emotions are temporary, they pass, right? So if we're able to identify it and label it, and then maybe even remind ourselves that this is going to pass and that's okay, it's okay to have different emotions. And further, to have a support system and people around you that you can be honest with and that you can be your true self with. So you don't have to feel like everything's great when everything's not great, because it's really difficult to be holding those emotions in. So actually being able to share them with others that will support you and validate that, and or allowing yourself to feel those emotions can be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely having family and friends that understand that you're allowed to feel how you feel is definitely very helpful in life.
Yeah, that support system is so important for everything.
Right, absolutely. So how can we deal with someone who is toxically positive, who does say those things to you?
Yeah, so there's a few options we have. And I think, it goes along with many things in our life that maybe we disagree with certain things that people say. I think communication is so key when it comes to relationships. But sometimes we can't openly speak to everybody about certain things. Maybe we anticipate that they're not going to take this information well. So I think, we have a few options. We can limit those interactions with those individuals. We can also know, if we can identify that this person typically reacts or responds in this way when something, sad happens or when I share something, then maybe we know that that's not our person to go to at that time. And of course, if we feel comfortable and if we think that they're going to receive the information well, I think we can also talk openly about it. I mean, there's been many times that I've even said to somebody, well, that's how I feel right now. Like, you can't deny that from me, that this is my feeling. So I think being able to communicate that in a way, knowing the other person and how they're going to receive it, can be helpful. And or at the end of the day, right, setting those boundaries and kind of limiting those interactions during times that we're really struggling can also be an answer. And then, in response to that, make sure you're surrounding yourself with those supportive people, especially during those more difficult, struggling times.
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And why is toxic positivity so harmful? I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but can you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, so, although it may be very well intended, right, for somebody to say, just stay positive, think positive vibes, oftentimes people don't know what to say. So that's often where these kind of thoughts come up. They think it's the right thing to say. So it's typically not, intended to be harmful. Usually it is very well intended. But what it's doing is it is ignoring the fact that we have other feelings. And it's ignoring the fact that we're experiencing something difficult. I think COVID, for instance, was a great example of how so many of us, really everybody, was going through a similar, like the same stressor, but we were all responding to it differently. And I think it really showed us that everybody has different emotions and everybody reacts and responds differently. But I think, we can remember that in these situations, that the answer isn't just stay positive, right? We want to be able to feel those emotions, and we don't want to deny ourselves that, because oftentimes if we also deny that, sometimes we're not getting the help we need, right? If we're just kind of sugarcoating it, I like to think of this like this fake happiness, right? Like in life, like we can be fake, but where is it going to get us, right? So if we're really struggling inside and we're just pretending that everything's fine and ignoring those other emotions, unfortunately at some point, it's going to creep up, right? So, I think acknowledging those emotions can be the first step to also getting help that we need. And like I said, kind of acknowledging that we are emotional humans, and or humans are emotional, and it's okay to have different emotions. I can't tell you enough how many times in the past 3 years I've reminded people, your feelings are valid. It doesn't matter what you're feeling. If that's what you're feeling, it is valid, and I can't take that away from you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's so important to feel all of the emotions and surround yourself with people who understand that and will be there for you no matter what.
Exactly. It's so important in all aspects of life to have those supportive people in your life.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Goldman, for being here with me today. I really appreciate it, and I know all of our OAC members appreciate it as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you.